What's up, guys? Static in the Attic. I've been working way too much lately, and there's been two things on my mind: food and the sun. But I did get out for a ride today, have a little fun, so that was cool. But I've been working my butt off on a project, and when I'm not on working my butt off getting a garden going here, the only two things that have caught my attention lately, and it should probably be about the only thing anybody's focused on right now, is the sun and food. I hate to say it, but we've been at this a couple years and learning about the past and what has actually happened there. And if that hasn't changed anything in you at all to be a little bit prepared and really consider what the actual future is looking like right now, because the writing is all over the wall. So if you hadn't noticed, things are ramping up really quick, and that's why the media is going nuts right now. It's all a distraction. Just focus on anything but the important things. But they did come out and tell you that there's going to be food shortages, and everybody just brushed that off completely. I know everybody's just assuming that it's third world countries, but the shift is underway, and they are actively doing everything they can to sabotage the food supply. But we'll talk more about food in a little bit. Let's talk about the sun here. So, Miami might see an aurora borealis for the first time in 42 years. I don't know why there was one 42 years ago. So, this was 3 days ago. We had this major CME kablam. Let me slow this down. Bam. Now, let me show you what a normal solar flare looks like. That's it. Now, this happened over several different airlines. They all just started canceling flights, and they say it's because of storms in Florida and technology issues at Southwest Airlines. Just intermittently, evidently, they were having problems. Well, Florida just happens to be dead center right on where this was impacting at. Now, I don't care if you look at this from the official point of view of it's 93 million miles away and the earth spins and it hits right there at that time, or the sun is going over and blasts right over Florida. What I do know is every time I see this camera pointed at the sun do this, 2 to 3 days later, I can find the headlines of the aurora borealis showing up in strange places. But this one just happened to be over Miami, and they just happened to be having intermittent technological problems with their planes. I'll let you do the math on that. So just to go over some basics here is you have an 11-year sun cycle, and then every few hundred years you have the grand solar minimum cycles. But in this 11-year cycle, we just went through the lowest sunspot activity in a very long time, going, I think it was 2019 into 2020. And so the sun is firing back up right now. This cycle won't peak until 2025. And this last week has been absolutely insane, guys. I think there was like a dozen altogether, but several of these were, M class and just back to back, and then an actual X class. Check out Suspicious Observers if you want daily updates on that. Check it out for yourself. You might have a 3-day heads up if the lights are going to go out. Now, this was X class, I think just like a 1 point something. I'm not even going to try. According to Ben at Suspicious Observers, you're talking an X20 to X30 would be a Carrington level event that you would really Stone Age us, And according to the Enlil Observatory here, it didn't even hit us head on. You can see that Earth is supposed to be yellow over to the right for whatever it's worth. But that's supposed to just be a glancing blow of an X.1, and they are canceling flights. Now, I find it really interesting that they choose to call this observatory Enlil. Now, Enlil is Baal in the Bible, as in the temple of Baalbek, known by many different names, different cultures, but his name means Lord of the Storm. The storm constitutes his weapon. Now, he's also known as the Lord of Vegetation, and that makes me think of the stone reliefs with the pine cones and the basket, the man bag or whatever it is. and maybe even compare it to the phoenix, the death and rebirth of things. But I've always seen that as seed, planting seed, roughly. But aside from that, the god Enlil is also pictured as a rushing deluge that brings woe to mankind, a torrent sweeping away buttresses and dikes, an onrushing storm which none can oppose. The word that causes the heavens on high to tremble, the word that makes the earth below quake. The word that brings destruction to the Anunnaki. And you know, now on YouTube, they put one of those little windows underneath of anybody's videos that are talking about the Anunnaki for some reason. Don't worry, I'm not going ET on you, but that's just a weird thing. They want the record to be straight about that. Uh, the word of the Lord, the heavens cannot endure. The word of Enlil, the earth cannot endure. The heavens cannot endure the stretching forth of his hand. The earth cannot endure the setting forth of his foot. So Enlil appears to be a force to be reckoned with. Now, the petroglyphs, I've been over this a lot of times to where this seems to be portraying things that they saw in the sky. All around the world, same kind of things. And I've always seen handprints on there. And I always just thought, well, they just put a handprint on there. But no, I think they might have been very literal about it. Zoom in close here, and I mean, what does that look like? And nobody's got a monkey thumb that long. And you got one guy with his hands up to the heavens going, oh crap. And you got another guy, looks like he's covering his head. And now let's pan out, and you see everybody all freaked out. And then you see the wavy line. So either, impact and tsunami or liquefaction of the ground. It felt like everybody was on water on the ground, even. If you've ever been in an earthquake, that's what it feels like. I was up in the mountains during 7.1 or whatever it was out in California a few years ago. And it felt like the whole mountain was just sliding back and forth on water or something. It's a really weird feeling. But I mean, doesn't that seem like a pretty good interpretation of what you're seeing on the screen here? There are a couple sites around the world where you can find vitrified glass out in the desert because, and what they say is it would have taken a nuclear explosion, yeah, or fireball from the sky to melt this glass. I can't remember who I was watching here, but they're not very far away from the Sphinx in Egypt, and there's all of this vitrified rock out there in the desert. This may have been the Uncharted X video. I just thought of this. I thought I'd throw this in here. Man, he goes like way down. This isn't the pyramid at Giza, but one of them, he goes down, and it's quite a ways down in there, and they've just got tunnel after tunnel everywhere. But there's a lot of underground structures all around the world. Like Darren Kuyu, we probably don't even know of a tenth of them. Who knows how many's out there, because in 1963, a Turkish farmer just found this underground city. Very sophisticated, had air shafts, and they had to have had a water system and something to take, human and animal waste out. That's something they don't really talk about, but these guys were set up underground. So anyway, that's all, worst case scenario. We've all heard the term hand of God, so I think it had a literal meaning. But also, Enlil is described as having created the world, order out of chaos, this death and rebirth cycle that we go through. And of course, I have no idea whatsoever if we will ever witness anything like that in our lifetimes. Now, what I do think we're going to see is that we are just coming out of the dormant stage of the 11-year cycle, and the sun is firing back up, expected to peak around 2025. And what we've just seen in the last week ain't nothing. Hopefully no big fireballs, but this does increase seismic and volcanic activity. And during one of these, I don't even remember which one it was, but there was a 7.0 east of Australia. And this coincided almost exactly with when the storm hit. Oh yeah, I've even got an article saying that the sunspot outburst is likely to trigger more radio blackouts. This just so happens when they're canceling all of these flights. So I think everybody should really consider what would happen if the power was out tomorrow, because this is something that could happen in the next few years. Now, if you're building your house out of bricks so the big bad wolf don't blow you away, then hopefully you are thinking about food and thinking about food and thinking about food. Because not only do we have the natural shifts that are occurring, but they are doing everything they can to absolutely destroy, the food market, just like with Willie G buying up all the farmland. They're making it so expensive to get anything. The conflict over in the place, well, there went like a huge portion of the world's fertilizer comes from that area. And this is affecting farmers all around the world. I watched this guy earlier. He said the glyphosate went up 4x. So I know a lot of people say, well, good. Well, the way they've engineered these plants, you can't grow for the masses without using these things. And I've heard some people guesstimating that we could be seeing, $10, $15 loaves of breads by May. That's just this year. And looking into the long term is not good. Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, says that the world's gonna face shortages. And in the third paragraph, he calls us an entitled generation for being able to go to the store and get food, and that supermarkets will soon face scarcity inflation. Scary new word that they made up. Because this is what that means. It means that fertilizer simply is not available. Now, on top of that, they're going around with their little PCR tests that we all have seen how effective and accurate those are. And if any chicken tests positive, well, then they kill the whole flock. And some of these, big farms, you're talking millions of chickens. So, just like myself, just like Ty here, there's a lot going on right now, guys. And I would suggest don't get distracted. There's all kinds of bells and whistles going off on all the media about all the wrong things. Who cares? We all know it's the Gresset that they've been promising. But I'll tell you this, they're never going to do a grid down on purpose because they have too much control with having everybody locked into the internet. It would be a CME or something along that would take things out. They're going to do everything they can to keep it on. But if it does happen, they will blame it on a cyber attack or something along those lines. So I would put away the distractions if you haven't already got a plan A, plan B, and plan C. And that's going to be completely different for everybody. But I would say it's time to get your butt in gear and actually do something, or just watch it all go down. All I'm saying. But if it's, mild like the Dalton minimum, we see some volcanoes, we see a couple of good earthquakes, but, 70-80% survived. Or it could be the heavens cannot endure the stretching forth of his hand, and the earth cannot endure the setting forth of his foot. And if that's the case, live your last days well and die well. Honestly, it'd be a hell of a way to go. Static out.